The only thing that is shown to extend lifespan in humans is calorie restriction. This means you have to eat less food than your maintenance calories, meaning the amount of calories you would need to consume to maintain your current body weight if you were to eat at a calorie deficit. So you have to be below that number for an extended period of time to show some sort of effect on extending your lifespan. There was actually something that came out in 2016 that found that not only does this calorie restriction increase your lifespan, but it also reduces the risk of age-related diseases by 35%. But it's hard to keep a calorie deficit for a long period of time. It's hard to stick to a diet where you constantly restricting calories because you feel hungry. You're gonna feel fatigued, you're gonna lose muscle mass, and you're just gonna feel shitty doing it. What if there was a way we could mimic these effects without actually restricting calories? Well, it turns out there is, and it's done with intermittent fasting. Okay, so what intermittent fasting does is it puts you into a fasted state, which allows you to activate something called autophagy. Autophagy is basically the process of recycling old damaged proteins and other cellular debris. So think of it like cleaning up your cell. You literally are breaking down the components of your cells that are no longer working or damaged, and recycling them back into the body so that you can use them for fuel. So instead of having to synthesize brand new protein, you're literally taking the old protein from your liver, from your muscles, wherever it may be, breaking it down into its individual amino acids and then resynthesizing those amino acids into new protein. So you don't actually have to eat more protein, you don't have to eat more calories. You're just taking the stuff you already have and reusing it. And when you go through periods of fasting, the longer you fast, the more autophagy increases. We know this because they did studies on yeast cells, they did studies on mice, and they even did studies on human beings. In one study, they took a group of obese individuals and they found that the longer they fasted, the more autophagy increased. And you can measure autophagy a couple different ways. One of the ways is looking at a protein called LC3. LC3 is found on your autophagisms, which is kind of like a little bubble in the cell that engulfs damaged proteins and other cellular debris and then recycles them into the cell. When you look at LC3, they found that the longer you fasted, the more LC3 you had. And LC3 is a marker of autophagy. They found that after 72 hours of fasting, autophagy peaked. After 72 hours of fasting, if you were to stop eating, your body would be in a pretty good state of autophagy. Now, obviously, some people might find this a bit too extreme. You can still get a good amount of autophagy after 48 hours of fasting, but the more you fast, the better the effect. Another marker for autophagy is something called P62. P62 is another protein that builds up inside the cell along with all the damaged proteins. And as it builds up, it actually inhibits certain signaling pathways. Those signaling pathways control things like inflammation, so when you decrease P62, you actually reduce inflammation. In this study, they found that after 48 hours of fasting, P62 decreased by about 45%. Then, after 72 hours, it decreased by 58%. So again, the longer you fast, the better the effect. There was also another study that looked at healthy non-obese individuals and they found similar results. Autophagy peaked after 72 hours. They also found that there was a big drop in insulin after 72 hours. This is why I always recommend people do a 72-hour water fast. That way you can burn off all the sugar that's stored in your liver. You can tap into burning fat much faster and it's really easy to do. You simply just don't eat anything but water for 72 hours and you can get amazing benefits. Now I want to clarify something. You do want to have to do a 72-hour water fast every single week to see the benefits of autophagy. It's simply just one option you have. If you want to accelerate autophagy, there are two main things you can do. First is to do prolonged fasting. The other is to exercise. Exercise can actually increase autophagy as well, especially endurance type of exercise. It doesn't have to be high intensity. It just has to be low intensity, steady state type of cardio like going for a walk, maybe doing some yoga, swimming, biking, anything that gets you into that fasted state and improves endurance. In one study, they took a bunch of mice and they forced them to run, and they found that during the running they experienced an increase in autophagy. In another study, they trained 6 overweight men by having them walk for 60 minutes per day for 5 days per week, and they found that after 4 weeks of walking, autophagy increased. Another study took elite race walkers and they compared the walkers to a control group that didn't walk, and they found that the race walkers had higher levels of autophagy, so autophagy definitely plays a role in endurance. This is why one of my favorite ways to build muscle and burn fat is to combine fasting with cardio. For example, let's say you have a goal of building muscle and burning fat. One way you could do it would be to do high-intensity strength training. That would help you build muscle, but it wouldn't help you tap into fat as fast. A better approach would be to do moderate-intensity strength training and combine it with low-intensity endurance type of training. For example, after my weight training session, I will usually go for a 30-minute walk. That way I'm combining the benefits of both types of training, and I'm also increasing autophagy. So how exactly does autophagy increase endurance? Well, autophagy helps clear damaged mitochondria and proteins within our muscles. Damaged mitochondria can lead to a decline in energy production. So as they're being broken down and recycled through autophagy, you're going to have less damage. Less damage equals more energy. You're also going to be able to recover faster between sets, which means you'll be able to lift heavier weights for longer periods of time. One thing that fasting and autophagy do that is really beneficial for performance and for fat loss is they improve insulin sensitivity. If you have insulin resistance, your body doesn't use insulin efficiently, which means that your body is going to store more fat instead of burning it. Insulin resistance also leads to a slower metabolism, meaning that you're going to be less active. It's like gravity is slowing you down. So if you can improve insulin sensitivity, you're going to burn more fat, you're going to use insulin more efficiently. You're gonna be able to tap into that fat much sooner, and you're gonna feel more energetic throughout the day. It's interesting because the best way to improve insulin sensitivity is to increase ciliary neurotrophic factor, and guess what? Fasting and exercise do that as well. And finally, autophagy can also increase something called mitochondrial biogenesis, which basically means you make more mitochondria. Mitochondria are the powerhouse of the cell, especially when it comes to fat loss. If you have more mitochondria, you're going to be able to burn more fat. That's why when someone goes on a low-carb diet, for example, they start burning fat much faster because they improve mitochondrial biogenesis. They start making more mitochondria. So the next time you're trying to lose fat, try doing something like a 72-hour water fast, and then after that water fast, go for a nice walk. And that combination should really accelerate fat loss. Autophagy isn't just great for fat loss, it's also great for longevity. Like I said before, studies have shown that if you restrict calories, you live longer. And guess what? Fasting mimics that same effect. Now you don't have to do a 72-hour fast every single week to live longer. You can simply just fast for 16 hours and eat during an 8-hour window. Over time, that should still improve your health and your lifespan. Autophagy is also really good for cancer prevention. So it's been shown that if you fast, you can actually starve cancer cells. So autophagy may play a role in preventing cancer or decreasing the risk of cancer. And it's also really good for brain health. Your brain requires a lot of energy. It's one of the most metabolically active organs in the body. So improving the health of your mitochondria can improve cognitive function. And guess what? Autophagy does that as well. One way that autophagy improves brain health is by reducing inflammation in the brain. And it also decreases amyloid beta. Amyloid beta is something that builds up in Alzheimer's patients. And autophagy can help remove that. So again, fasting isn't just great for losing fat. It's also great for living a longer, healthier life. Alright, I'll see you guys soon.